live in Marietta, East Cobb.
Oh.
And I also have a beach house over here,
Where?
north of Hilton Head in Beaufort County. Brookline. And so it's about an hour and a half from here. So when I'm here working in Savannah, I'm often driving back and forth to here.
I've never heard of it. That sounds
It's about 2,000 homes, no hotels, and everybody gets around with a golf cart and a couple golf courses.
I've only been to Hilton Head once, and there was a lot of traffic.
Hilton Head is way too
It's crazy. I was like, oh, pretty fun.
But if you go to Beaufort and you continue out 21, out to Hunting Island, and after you get past Hunting Island, it's 20 miles.
Did it die?
Okay, you
Did
did
I
good.
try?
Thank
Okay.
you.
20 miles from Beaufort.
20 miles from Beaufort.
I got one employee from Beaufort. I started chicken for her.
Anyways, that's a long story. A live chicken, but not for long. Anyways. It did. Well, it was an educational experience for a lot of people. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Infrastructure Development Committee meeting here at Chatham Area Transit Central Offices. It's June 13th, 2023, and around 4 o'clock, I think. We've got actually a very, very large agenda here, some thick paper to go through. So I'm going to turn it over to our CEO.
Thank you very much, Director. So the first item on the agenda today is the proposed board agenda items recommended by this committee is the FY 2024 to 2034 Master Transit Plan. As per, if you've seen your emails from earlier today, at the request of one of our board members, we are going to present the draft. So what you've seen over the last 3 months, the last year's worth of work has led up to about 3 months ago. We presented the what the recommendations were going to be, or where the recommendations were headed, and then we presented the how next month. So another bite of the recommendations, if you will. This is more around the funding and implementation strategies and so forth. And then last month we brought all that together in a recommendations piece of deck. The board has had the opportunity for the last month to review that and ask any questions or any comments that they might have. One board member has asked for that deck, that it would actually be converted into the final report format for presentation on June 27th and give the board hold over the actual adoption of the Master Transit Plan until the July meeting. So that is what we will be doing. That draft final report will be consistent though with the information and details that have been presented over the past several months in committee board meetings. We look forward to receiving any comments that the board members may have after the June 27th presentation, and ask that we receive those by July 17th in order to allow for any revisions. The final report which will be the really glossy report that we will then present at the July 25th board meeting. There was also a question, and we wanted to clarify on this, that with regard to FTA requirements, FTA requires that we have a 5-year capital operating plan to guide investment, but they do not require that we have COA, TP, Master Transit Plan, or any of those other things. However, in terms of both best practice and in terms of how to effectively manage these kinds of programs and organizations like this one, we know that bringing together CAP has been very smart in bringing together both the Master Transit Plan completion and accomplishment as the vision and the implementation strategies piece of how we can do what we're going to do, really thinking out over the next 10 years, along with the C of A TDP, which are in your presentation for WRA, and Jim Ritchie, who's with us today in just a few moments, around the recommendations for that. And that again is the sort of nuts and bolts, the routes, stops and shelters and so forth. It's that piece of the system and how those things nest together with our annual budget, which includes a capital improvement program. And those are critical tools. You put those things together and we have a powerhouse of tools So with that, I will turn it, or I'll move over to the reports, in committee, and planning items update. Jim, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you to present on the COA TDP presentation as part. I know we've got another open business too, but I'm gonna go ahead.
Okay.
Do we wanna go ahead and bring up the? Yes. See what you're on this.
We've got graphics.
I think we've got a pretty abbreviated, okay. You want me to get closer? If I get closer, is that better? I tell you what, Jim, we'll go ahead and bring this up. So the COA TDP, are we bringing up Jim's or no? Bring it up. I'm sorry, hang on just one moment. We're trying to do several things at one time. Which one are you trying to bring up? We're trying to bring up mine first. I apologize. The regular planning. We're just talking through that one today. Okay. So planning items update. We've already covered, I think, in detail the master transit plan, which has really been the focus of the planning work. You're about to hear an update on the COA TDP work. In terms of the grants update, we have been focused on several of our grants that were older grants, including one for the ferry dock, the ferry maintenance facility, that needed to be caught up, if you will, in terms of their implementation schedule. And we've been focused on those, as well as onlining our new grants like the SMART grant and so forth. And did you want to offer the communications update, or are you going to hold that? I'll be fine. Okay. So with that, we will go ahead. One other thing I should mention is in the snapshot this week, one of the exciting things that you will see related to one of our grants and implementation of it is you will see the keel, K-E-E-L, the keel setting of the ferries in New York. We got pictures today and a progress report of the keel setting, and so we've got some progress to share with the board members, and that'll be in your snapshot this week. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ritchie with WRA to bring us up to date on the COA TDP work.
Great. Folks, I'll try to go through this quickly, but yet with enough information as let you see the work that we've done. I put this bubble on this first slide because I really wanted you to know that the recommendations have been in close coordination with the bus operators, the union, the supervisors, and the master transit plan. Especially changes that we're putting together on the 17th now, I think is the right day of July. A number of those changes are direct request from the bus operators. We have changes in Route 14, Route 31, Route 25, a number of them that are direct request from the operators, both to help with the safety of the service as well as the operation. Yes.
Is it okay if I interrupt frequently? Okay, thanks, Jim. So just to make sure, so when you say updates made on July 17th, will those be like on July 17th routes will have adjusted?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And now, for example,
that's the idea.
Right. The operators have said that we were having a real challenge getting the first loads in on Route 31. We didn't have enough service on Skidaway early, that we cut too much off. So we added back our early trip on 31. Mm-hmm. Same was true on the 14th. We didn't have the early morning trips coming in on the 14th that were needed. So those have been revised. Other changes on the 17th were related to the running time on Route 6. But we're both helping you with your day-to-day or your pick-to-pick service plan, but we're also really taking that knowledge that we're getting from really helping with the immediate scheduling and putting that into this transit development plan. So that was really my point, is just the number of meetings that we had with the union, and their feedback has really helped to inform the work.
Glad to hear
Our short-term goals for the service are mostly first to restore service reliability. And we started that with service changes October of last year. We then I believe that our service can be much more usable to our customers if we are primarily at a 30-minute frequency on routes. That when we're at an hour frequency or 2-hour frequency, it's terribly inconvenient for folks. And so I want to the best we can find ways to make our services at a 30-minute frequency. And then the third biggest thing that we really have seen is we've got to improve access to suburban jobs, our high schools, our higher education institutions. So if the number one for us in this work is trying to realign the routes to get 30-minute frequencies, and second is really focus on high schools and our higher education. So
one thing I'd mention too, and Jim has it in the bubble up there, is the master transit plan. The short-term goals that you can see here for the COA TDP are also mirrored in those with alignment in strategies of the master transit plan as well, and the short-term component of it. So Fix It First, remember, was one of the very first sort of goals, if you will, of the master transit plan, and that aligns with the short-term goals of the COA TDP as well. So we're making sure that these things are working together to leverage the best benefit from both efforts.
okay, here we go again. There we go, and bring it back up in the presentation. There, thank you. Now, to me, frequent bus means truly for people improved access to opportunities. Now, I want you to understand, for me, what frequent service means is every 30 minutes on weekdays, every hour on Saturdays, Sundays, and evenings. I think if we can achieve that frequency, I would feel we were at a reasonably frequent transit service. Now, over here on the right side of the slide is the history of where we've been. The CAT revenue hours, and I know it's hidden on the slide right here, but it's roughly 50% reduction in revenue hours from 2016 up to 2023. So we've lost 50% of the service, and we've lost 54% of the ridership. Now, I don't believe we can gain all of that ridership back, but I think we can gain a substantial portion of that back if we can create a more frequent network. We've completed an onboard survey, and I wanted just to look at some of the highlights from the survey. We had 399 responses, which gives us 3.9% error rate with a 90% confidence interval. The survey was done both online and on buses. And some of the key things are the high level of people going to jobs at 43%, but a very low level on going to school. I think the 3.7% going to school really says we're not serving school destinations very well. 18% of our riders are over 64. Really a high number, I think, of our riders over 64, showing how important service is. Other key indicators, and I've called this the equity profile. We have 56% of our riders are Black. That's much lower than other systems that I have worked with. We really have a very high percentage, 34% that are white or Caucasian. Also, though, very high number 55% that are very low income. Again, an indicator of how important the service is. We got 15% of our customers who speak English less than very well.
If I may, it's also interesting that there's 6% of our ridership makes over $100,000 a year.
That's
That's
true.
I think that's kind of interesting too.
Unexpected.
Definitely.
Now, the other is access to a vehicle. 63% of our riders said they do not have access to a vehicle for their trip.
It's on the low.
There we go. CATS service is essential for our community in this equity profile. This was something that I put together, and this is of regular users. We took out the people who said they were not regular users in doing this comparison. 59% thought it was comfortable and safe, but yet 27% were dissatisfied with the safety. 25% were dissatisfied with the reliability. 24% didn't think the service was frequent enough. And 23% said they were dissatisfied with where does the service go. So roughly a quarter of the riders were dissatisfied in some way with our services. And I think we can do better than that. I'd love for 2 or 3 years from now, after we have restored service, to do this survey again, because I want that satisfied number to be up into the 80 or 90%, not in the 60% range. This was also a comparison of the long-term users with the non-long-term users. And these were basic bullets that the one that really got me is long-term users saying more frequent service is needed. 41% of long-term users were saying more frequent service is needed. You also see that more routes are needed. There's not necessarily a desire for more routes as much as there is more frequent service. I thought it's also instructive that the riders think the service takes too long compared to the non-riders that don't have quite that opinion.
How is this question composed? How would I hit 100?
You don't hit 100. You hit, this was of the, and I go back to, you see the ratings on the box over here to the right. I'm sorry.
22.
Yeah, it's hard to see it all. And what we've lumped together is the satisfied or the very satisfied with the not, we rank the two categories on either side. So the neutral is what then shows up as the other difference.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay. And that is that question.
Fancy.
Okay, let's jump to what do we think we should do in the services?
Also, just to make sure, but this This is the first time. Is this the first time I've been we've seen this? I mean, not.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It is. I will send it out.
Thank
I'll
God.
send a copy of this report though, out this week with the snapshot.
I was very concerned I had missed something like a week. Okay. Cool. Sounds good.
So this is mapping and showing the impact as we change the frequent service network. Here in the spring of 23, it's only really Route 14 and the dot shuttles that meet this every 30-minute criteria. And you'll see that we have 10,000 jobs within the frequent network. We have 1,600 families in poverty and 32,000 rather, a minority population. Let's see how it changes when we improve the service. We go from 27 peak buses to 33 peak buses, and you're going to see where we're improving the frequency on the 31 Skidaway. We're going to work to improve the frequency on the Waters Avenue routes. And we go from 24,000 jobs within the frequent network to 75,000 is the minority population, almost doubling the number of families in poverty within a third of a mile of the service. And then in the third phase of the service, that is known as the mid-range in the master transit plan, we're at 43 peak buses, roughly back to the point where we were in 2016. And we are up to 100,000 of the minority population within a third of a mile, 5,000 families in poverty within a third of a mile of the frequent network, and 32,000 jobs within the frequent network. So this is an indicator that we're trying to focus the services where we get the most bang for the buck, where we're able to make it accessible for people. Now, this is a chart showing the phased improvements. And let me explain them for a minute. Now, the immediate phase is what we'd like to see happen during 2024. Now, some of these changes we may be able to make with the October change. Some of them we're actually making with the July change, but I think some will occur in the March change. At the top of the screen is the West Chatham routes. We want to make microtransit serve the Jimmy DeLoach area so that we can have direct service to Gulfstream, the airport, and the Tanger Outlets area. We also want to extend Route 3B out to Port Wentworth. Route 6, I already mentioned, that goes into effect actually in July, as we're doing some route revisions to improve the frequency. The Route 10, that will end up being late in the year, that we hope to have a new microtransit service. That will be the fourth microtransit route, which will be out at East Savannah. Route 11 Chandler starts in July and includes service extension to Savannah State. Route 14 also starts in July, where we've gone back to 5 buses on Route 14 in a 2.5-hour cycle. The 17A is also one that will time with microtransit. When we're actually able to start microtransit, then we will actually shorten the route to take off a bad turnaround that drivers are having on Quaco Road at a trailer park there. We'll also depending upon availability of drivers, we want this year to improve the frequency on the 25. We want to improve the frequency on the 27. And on the 31, we want to shorten the route and then go from 2 to 3 buses, which will get our 30-minute frequency. So that's the immediate changes. The short term are the next 2 years. Again, where we hope to add more service out to the Groves High School on the 3B. We want to improve the 4 and add a route that we call the 4 South Side so that it serves the South Side areas and the Windsor Road area. We want to extend with a microtransit service in Wilmington Island area. We want to be able to shorten the Route 10 so it stops at the Walmart and then put an extra bus on it so that we can get to East Savannah in every 30-minute service. Then in the longer term or midterm, we're adding additional frequency on the 4 and the 6. I'm going to walk through and show you these changes in a tad more detail. Here, the West Chatham service, right now, both routes go down Augusta Avenue, and then the 3B circles back to the East Bay Street area. What we're proposing is having the Route 3 go directly to the airport on East Bay Street, and Route 3B continue service in the Augusta area. You see here, we describe the service concept and then the implementation phasing when we make the changes go into effect. Now, there will be some service reductions in the Clearview area. It's also, there was a public housing community there that has recently been torn down, which is why we think we can and should reduce the service in the neighborhood now. But that is an area that we'll want to make sure we have public meetings for and give folks the opportunity to let us know if we've gotten the right recommendations. For Route 3B, we've been working with Port Wentworth for Port Wentworth to pay for a service extension out to Port Wentworth. And Port Wentworth at this point is willing to come to the table to pay the full operating cost to run the service out to Port Wentworth, plus the cost of roughly 15 shelters and stop improvements. So we're pleased that we've made good progress with Port Wentworth, but I also will say it may be as late as the spring before we can get the service in place because of the stop improvements that have to be made, many of them on GDOT controlled roadways. So Route 3 extension to Port Wentworth is one real important piece of it. But then I also want to be able to improve frequency by adding a turnaround at the new Groves High School, where we'll turn around at the Grove. There's on Priscilla Thomas Way, there is a new turnaround that we'll be able to use that'll help us improve frequency on Augusta Road. On Route 4, Bernard, we've already returned Route 4, which serves Bernard corridor to the mall and then on to the Walmart. We've already have that service in place. What we want to do now is we want to add a second bus on Route 4 that will continue to serve the South Side community, the Windsor Road area to the backside of Georgia State. We think we may be able to get the South Side service in service probably next spring, maybe not this fall, but we'll see. It depends upon the availability of the operators to do that. Route 6 Crosstown
And Route 6 Crosstown, we're proposing to reduce service in two areas. One is here on King George Boulevard, very low ridership, but takes a fair amount of additional time to serve that section of King George Boulevard. And then here at the mall, we come in and we make a pretty large loop, and it's to try to reduce the amount of loop at the mall and get our cycle time to every 45 minutes. We're revising the schedule this summer, and we expect to shorten the route in about 2024. The Route 10 to East Savannah serves the Savannah Gardens community, new community housing in this area. And we think, and it also serves the tiny homes village here, as well as the DFACS facilities here. We think we can reduce the mileage, because right now the route continues all the way out to Wilmington Island, has very low ridership on the tail end of it. So we cut this service out and let microtransit serve the Wilmington Island area. And then we're able, we have currently 2 buses. We add a 3rd bus and we get to the 30-minute frequency. And I'm showing it here in the 2024 timeframe.
Jim,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
thing I don't see on here that we should point out very clearly is, I mean, I think it's outlined there, but the micro transit zone for East Savannah, not the one for White Marsh and Wilmington Islands, the
This one
fourth
right here.
That micro transit zone that's going to be serving East Savannah also incorporates an area there that, for lack of a better description of it, there is a purpose-built community that is being contemplated there. I don't remember the name of it now off the top of my head, but yes, that is in that area, in addition to the tiny village, in addition to the other sort of community connectivity there. And so that micro transit zone, and I noticed we didn't really, unless I'm missing it up there, Jim, I don't see it called out specifically, and we need to do that.
It's on another slide.
Okay.
It's on another slide on microtransit, but
Got it.
that is to be in the immediate implementation is.
The what? Which one? Oh, the sub-employment zone?
Yeah, I'm sorry, these, the legend needs to be changed here. These are the microtransit zone. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one so that one that's called the sub-employment zone downtown is what we're calling the East Savannah microtransit zone. And the White Marsh is a future one. The first 3 we're gonna roll out through the SMART grant is the 2 in West Chatham and the one in this one in South. Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna go as far as the Walmart. And at the Walmart is where we'll have the transfer to the microtransit zone in the future. But it's this microtransit zone that starts first. And it's really to be an overlay and to provide even enhanced service over the reasonably good service we have there today. Okay. Now, this is service that we're restoring. Route 11 was canceled last October. And Route 11 is being reintroduced, but with just a little bit of a change to it. Route 11 had gone to Chandler Hospital and then had all of this extra area that is seen in the dash lines on it. Now instead, Route 11 will come out and head out Durin past the high school and then serve Savannah State and back. So this will start as a 80-minute cycle time with 1 bus, so 1 hour and 20 minutes on the bus, And we'll ultimately add a second bus and get the frequency down to once every 20 minutes. Or once every 40 minutes.
No Route 11, right?
There's currently no Route 11, and it returns in middle of July. July 17th is when Route 11 will return to service. It'll be only it's 8 hours a day total that we're operating. It'll be 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon. And then as the number of operators grows, we will add the service so that it's an all-day service.
All day, that means now, I know that all day, that's not changed.
Generally, it's a 14-hour day. From 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. is the rough 14-hour day service. And one of the things we're trying to do by having this Route 11 frequently serve Chandler Hospital is we're able to take the Route 27 that currently serves Chandler out of Chandler. That enables us to make the route in a 90-minute cycle instead of a 2-hour cycle. And when we do that, we put 3 buses on the 27 and we can get a 30-minute frequency on Waters. So the 11 and the 27 are related in what changes we make.
I just wanted to take one moment. I know that Director Adams is up there. I just wanted to, Director Adams, have you had any questions or comments or anything you want to raise up until this point?
No, not right now. Thank
Very
you.
good, sir. Thank you, sir.
One question I've got related to the one concern I hear about the dot shuttle is that it doesn't get the weight enough. We'd like to obviously do that 24-hour day, but I think we afford that. Is there any in this plan, there other than the change for the are there any big changes with that?
Not at the moment. I mean,
Okay.
we just have done a contract with the city that still is a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service. And perhaps we need to do an amendment later with the city to make it run later. But right now, we're till 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Candler.
Thank you.
That might confuse somebody down.
Thank you. Confuses me all the time.
Yeah, no worries.
Route 12, we've already made the service change where we shortened the Route 12 and it will continue. Here we want to ultimately add a second bus to the Route 12 Henry so we can make it an every 30-minute service. But it seems to be working very well. It ends just short of Thunderbird before, and it previously went across to the Walmart. The 14 essentially gets restored to the same service that we had before last October, except a circulation pattern out here on the end of the route. In designing routes, we want to make it so that you board on one side of the street and then you can get off directly on the other side of the street. You always want the bus going this back and forth on the same street. We want to avoid loops wherever we can. What that does when we're avoiding the loops is it means your trip going is just as quick as your trip returning. So we always are trying to, in designing the services, not do a loop. Here on the 14, what will now occur is comes down past Georgia State. It will go by the mall to the VA, and from the VA back to the Walmart that is the layover and the turnaround. And then it does the same thing in reverse, goes back from the Walmart to the VA and back to town. So the people at the VA will be able to board the bus on either side of the street, either get off on one side or get on the other. That way we don't make people have to ride through a layover and wait for 10 minutes while the driver runs into to Walmart to use the facilities. That again goes in July. Now Route 17, Silk Hope area, has a large microtransit zone that includes the new Amazon Savannah 4 distribution facility. What the route, or the primary change in the route, is to remove this section of Quaco Road. Again, there's a turnaround at the end of Quaco Road. It's very hard for the bus operators to make. So that gets changed. In the future, we would like to consider adding a second route that we've called the 17B that would serve up Quaco Road up to Pooler and the Interstate 16 Pooler Parkway interchange. That is likely to be a longer term, either 2028 or even later. And this is not correct what I've got here on the implementation phase. It should be 2028, not 2024. We approached, or Amazon asked for bus service that would serve them for 4 work shifts. Working with staff, we put together a potential express route for the Amazon service. We priced it out for Amazon and asked Amazon to pay the cost for the service. As I recall, Faye, that was in the $400,000 or so a year for the service. Amazon has decided they would like to get their factory open or their facility open first, and then decide if they need the service. So right now, we are not planning on implementing this Savannah 4 Express service until Amazon gets back and says, yes, they need it, and they are willing to help pay for the service. No, it would be a general, any service that CAT runs has to be a general public service. And so,
No, it all has to be open to the general public, even though it may be serving an area where there's a predominance of a particular employer or employee.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's great because there's a lot of, they're like next to the Mitsubishi plant, and that's interesting.
yeah, we cannot restrict the buses to a particular, although we're trying to get Amazon to pay for them.
Yeah.
But it cannot be restricted only to Amazon employees.
It's similar to what we're doing with Commuter Express too. It's open to the public, but it may be open to a particular trip that's more job employment based.
Right, it may likely only be used by a certain group, but it cannot be excluded exclusively for that group.
Absolutely.
Now, the MLK Boulevard service, we're currently down to 2 buses in it, and it's not as frequent as we'd like it to be. And so we think we can make the cycle with 3 buses with a 30-minute service. This is one also we're making or proposing a minor change in it on Chatham Parkway. Right now, the bus runs this section. It runs actually outbound this way and then inbound on Chatham Parkway. So anyone that's going to board the bus in this section has to ride all the way out before they can come back. And so we do away with this section, and there's no stops on this section of Chatham Park.
Really?
And we'll actually go both directions on the 25. We also make a minor change here to remove a sharp turn at the railroad and Montgomery Street. But we hope we can implement soon this third bus for the MLK Boulevard.
I'm glad to see the elimination of a lot of the loops, because they are frustrating.
One of the things, Jim, we need to add to the 27 and 28 waters, back to this one, is the project that is moving forward with GDOT right now and the city of Savannah for transit signal prioritization.
Okay,
We just need to note that that would be a part of, I guess you would call it the service concept. That's a change that will help potentially with our travel time, performance and so forth. So we just need to be sure we note that on there. We're getting closer.
good.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we will note that. Now, idea here is the 27 currently serves Candler, not Chandler, Candler Hospital, right? And it has a 2-hour cycle time,
Oh boy.
including this loop. We think by cutting the Candler Hospital loop out, we can make the service, it's 12 miles an hour, and we think it can operate with a 90-minute cycle time with 3 buses. So by adding the 11 by the hospital, we take the 27 out, we add a bus, and all of a sudden we now have every 30-minute service on cars. The 28, continues its pattern. It extends all the way to Walmart. Right now, it's 1 bus, 2-hour cycle on the 28, and we will add a second bus to it in the future to get us down to a 60-minute frequency on the 28.
I was just looking at my map. I was just looking at my map on Google Maps to make sure I'm right, but the star that says Memorial Health University I think on all the maps is on the wrong side of the Truman. I think it's you see on the purple route where it has the little nipple thingy in the middle. Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
label is wrong.
Yeah, it's right there.
Right.
That's where it is.
Okay,
Which, I mean,
we'll correct it.
yeah, no big deal. But on one of them, I was like, I've never seen that.
Okay. The 31, out of Spearway. Now, this is a route that I went and rode personally. It's very well utilized. And I think if we can improve the frequency on the 31, we can really improve the ridership. But what I found truly frustrating as I rode it was this extra extension. We come out Skidaway, we get to the Walmart, and then we go all the way over to the mall and back. This section by the mall is very lightly used on the 31. So we cut the 31 short at the Walmart, and we turn it into an every 30-minute service by going from 2 buses we had currently, and we add 1 more, 3 buses gets us to 30-minute service on the 30.
It kind of seems overall with a lot of these that you're trying to get back to the idea that downtown is a connection. That's sort of where you sort of interface with the other routes.
Downtown continues to be a connection, but there's other places, I mean, that especially the mall, which is a heavy connection here, but it's also making our arterial, or really making all of our corridors as close to this 30-minute frequency as we
Director Adams, let me ask you one more time. I know that we're getting close to the end of what is normally our time. I wanted to make sure, see if you're gonna be able to stay with us, and also just see if you had any questions, since you're behind the PowerPoint right now.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna be here, but I did have one question on the Amazon piece.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Have we tried to connect with other warehouses out there to see if they also need service?
Well, we have, one of the companies that we work with is Wayfair.
Yep.
That's, I'm getting it.
Director Adams, we have, as Jim was trying to say, we've talked to Wayfair, we certainly have talked to Amazon, and we are there, you know, with both of those planned microtransit zones, and we're gonna show those in just a minute again. Remember, our first 2 microtransit zones are gonna be in West Chatham. And that area and connectivity of those kinds of facilities and that kind of employment base and use is gonna be really one of the focuses of both of those, in addition to being sort of sandwiched in around the airport and Gulfstream and all that. And I know Jim's gonna cover that a little bit more as well.
Okay. My other question is, will microtransit be able to handle 600 to 700 people? As what I saw for Amazon.
I think you're exactly right, that the microtransit is not going to be workable for high numbers of work sites. That's why I think that Amazon facility is probably one of the highest numbers. Although I tell you, I think right now on Jimmy DeLoach, where we are serving with the 3 West Chatham, a number of the work centers, we serve it really poorly. We make somebody get off on Jimmy DeLoach and walk a quarter mile, half a mile to try to get to their work site. And what microtransit will do will be able to take you directly. But microtransit's going to be built for 10 or so folks at maximum on the vehicles, and it may not be ultimately enough capacity for some of these work sites.
I think one of the things, Director Adams, and we've been working on this too, is I know you've heard us talk about microtransit, and we already know we have fixed and paratransit, and we've also been talking about adding in commuter express. We've also, van pools is another important travel demand management service that we've not been in that business, and a little different from microtransit in terms of being on demand. It really does. It's sort of like the mini version of commuter express in a way. And so the notion that that may also be a product that we need to add into our mix in order to be able to manage the demand is going to be an important one. And that's why all of the efforts that we have ongoing right now, including the COA TDP work, the master transit plan work, and then of course the prioritization of effort and commitments that we're making in our budget as to how we move all those things forward, is such a critical time for all of that, and a particularly critical time, I know you've heard us talk about this before, for how well we're going to be able to advance in meeting the needs in the community and in the demand in our market is going to be reliant upon how successfully we have local funding available to match opportunities to be able to make these things go, and how well we develop partnerships like Jim has been describing here, whether that is with Amazon or whether that is with Hyundai or whether that is with any number of other employers who see, for example, a van pool program as being an important part of an employee benefit. And so we're really going to have to get out of our normal what has been our traditional sort of, I don't want to call it comfort zone, but it's been our sort of traditional practice of service, and begin to add in these other tools in the toolkit that we can put together a system that really does effectively serve all the needs and people of Chatham County.
Thank you, ma'am.
So next to last slide. This is just the microtransit pilot program that we've talked about in 3 areas. The first area is the West Chatham Jimmy DeLoach area up at the top of the screen. It is crafted to try to take people to the jobs that are in the Jimmy DeLoach area, whether there's a couple of Walmart distribution centers, Home Depot distribution centers that would be served from this West Chatham microtransit zone. But it also enables us, when we get that zone running, the Route 3 Chatham, West Chatham can now go directly to the airport rather than having the big loop out at the end of the service. That's really what the microtransit zone does there for that route. The second microtransit zone is the Silk Hope microtransit zone, and the third one is the Tiny Homes zone and East Savannah zone. Initially, we'll plan on 6 vehicles, growing to 10. We already know the software will be through a partnership with Georgia Tech. Sometime this fall, we think the service can get started, but it's still to be seen because the grant contract is not actually executed yet for the service. And then we'll add a future Wilmington Island microtransit zone.
For the
And
benefit of the public that have joined us for this committee meeting as well, I want to be sure to stress, in addition to that software partnership that we have with Georgia Tech, there also are several other really key partnerships with regard to this microtransit pilot program that we are very proud of. We have an internship program with Savannah State, our HBCU, and the student who is going to be joining us from that engineering technology program has been selected. She'll be joining us soon. We're excited about that. In addition, we are engaging in a partnership. As a matter of fact, our first meeting is tomorrow with Savannah Tech. Of course, Savannah Tech already has a partnership with Hyundai around electric vehicle operations, electric charging infrastructure, and so forth. We're going to be working with them to leverage their capabilities to part of that grant that we got for the microtransit pilot program was for training. We want to work with a local entity like Savannah Tech to share that electric vehicle training, electric charging infrastructure training with our mechanics and our operators in a way that we build capacity and we build careers that are right here in this community. And then, of course, a very important partnership with our ATU Local 1324, because unlike many other microtransit programs around the country, not only did we choose to be innovative and creative with regard to this being an electric vehicle microtransit pilot, but we also said this is going to be operated by our union operators. And we want to grow careers again and grow community capacity. So I want to be sure that we share all that with the public as we move this very important program forward.
And I love sounding like a broken record sometimes, but again, with the microtransit, I think the real flex is the software. I mean, it kind of doesn't really matter who's driving the car or where it's going or at what time. I mean, the software dictates so much. I mean, it's actively rerouting and routing. You know, my guess is automatically, and just making sure that the software is easy to use, very accessible, and just has like a nice flow to it. And we've got some apps that we currently use at CAT that have good flow. We have some apps that maybe don't have the best flow. I just want to make sure we've got, because that'll make or break it. It's just user interface, user design. And that's my spiel.
One of the things that we know about the Georgia Tech software is that it is a software that they have. We're not going to be their first test of it. They actually did a successful microtransit pilot with prior to this, and initially tested out the software. We're able to work out a lot of, some of the issues, if you will, that they noted during that. So we're getting the benefit of something that has been tested, but nonetheless has so much opportunity for further development. And we're a great market to try it out in. So we're excited about that and look forward to the opportunity.
I think that is, sorry, I think I ate a dry peanut.
You need water.
Are we still on?
So,
Okay, great. I think that is pretty cool though, that we're also like partnering with the university system, because unlike we're all good though. Unlike a for-profit technology provider for something like that, the university system has a totally different incentivization, which I think will be more towards making sure that we're happy as a prototype customer and that it's actually working. So that'll be cool.
But again, that contract is not quite
Mhm.
executed. So to get Georgia Tech's already working, but I think
well,
we've got a lot more to go.
We're just doing a lot of prep work right now where we don't have a pre-award authority or a notice to proceed in effect. And because this was such an unusual first-time program with USDOT, the normal clearances for environmental and NEPA and all those kinds of things that are just required, they're working through some unique processes to clear all of the 59 projects that were selected. And so it's just taking a little
From the
while.
grant, the SMART grant.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Okay, so last slide is just a comparison of where we're planning to go from a existing 27 peak buses to 43 peak buses. And I really want to point out the 2018 number, that we were at 40 peak buses, 550 revenue hours, and that's roughly where we're planning on being by 2027 or so. So this just shows the relationship to where we started and where we hope to get back to. Okay?
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Are there any other comments or questions from our board members?
On this slide specifically, I think a couple I would imagine that it's always easier to add service than it is to take it away. And so I think just making sure that we're gentle with folks about, and also just transparent on the reductions. And I think it is important making sure that people are understanding sort of the pros and cons of what we're able to build. And I think kind of going back to that idea that you mentioned, Jim, at the very beginning, is that 30-minute frequency is really, personally, what I think is it's either 30-minute frequency or just might as well not even really be running, because it's so, if you've been a user of a bus system, it is so frustrating trying to do anything over an hour. It's just crazy. Half an hour, all right, I can do that. And so I just want to make sure I said that. And then on bus operators, do we have, we're jumping from 59 to 102 bus operators, is that?
That was my question also.
Well, keep in mind that 102 is in the intermediate. So we've got a little bit of time here as we're moving forward. I know it says FY24,
okay.
That's upon us,
Got it.
but it's the whole of next year. We are starting to really see on the operator side, especially those weekly job fairs that we do, we are starting to see success there. I know that you've seen in the last several snapshots when we've got a graduating class coming forward, we had another coming. And so we are starting to see that uptick, and of course with the CDL training that Dr. Manning is hoping offerings that will help on the fixture outside, and then of course with microtransit, little easier hires there because they're like para in terms of requiring that. So it is ambitious, no doubt about it, but it is also what is necessary in order to provide the kind of service that people both need and expect.
Okay, now, okay, so the other thing to say on 59 operators and 360 weekday revenue hours, we are causing a lot of folks to work 50 scheduled hours a week. There's a lot here. There's a lot of scheduled overtime in the service now.
But remember, our overtime is less than what it used to be because So, we're still managing the safety aspect of that. But to Jim's point.
But my point is, when we get to 102 operators, we're going down from a lot of the runs having scheduled overtime to the runs being closer to 40-hour-a-week
That makes sense.
services.
102 is much bigger than 360.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that is, we will be lessening or expecting a lessening of the hours per week. But it also means that perhaps we could do the 478 hours with 90 operators, right? And so it's not, it is not a truly, one-to-one. It really, you use overtime to help expand the work that you can do with the workforce that you have.
So the changes of July 17th, obviously we can't just make more drivers appear in thin air. So that's sort of, we're just kind of moving around the same cards that we've got. This plan, its immediate phase, all of next year, we actually are already more cards to the deck.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hopefully 60.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Or 40.
Yes.
It's also going to be interesting to see how any changes that we might start to see and you don't know, we all are just trying to talk with a crystal ball, right? But any changes or tightening at all in the economy, I wonder how that's going to start to impact some of what we see in the workforce right now, which is a desire for lots of flexibility, not so much with operators, but like the administrative positions that we're trying to recruit for, people who really don't want to move right now, people don't really want it, that people like a lot of remote opportunity and those kinds of things. But it'll be interesting to see how any kind of tightening can occur over the rest of this year in the economy. How does that start to impact people making more choices in the workplace to, work in positions like these or like some of our other faithful positions?
I think not just like the employee, how does that affect our employment, but also ridership.
Oh, absolutely.
It's still weird time.
It is still weird times. Although ours is a little less weird. Atlanta's incredibly weird because their downtown was such an employment center and there's so much remote work going on that it just really has permanently, at least for the time being, changed their travel pattern. Whereas here is a little different and not as much impact.
So this is great. I feel like this is what I've been looking for from some of these conversations for a long time. It's really wonderful to see it all like explained out like this. And I'm very excited about that. Was this the only presentation that you given today, or did you give this to the other?
No, this is the only one.
He's going to give it at the board meeting, and we'll see this presentation plus the master transit plan. Is that right, Beverly?
I could definitely understand.
Oh, COA TDP is in July. That's right.
Okay.
But you'll see them both. I'm sorry, you're correct, because I forgot. What I was thinking about is how they're both going to come together for consideration for adoption in July. So you'll be able to see how they fit together, and you will have seen both present.
All done, very close coordination.
Yeah.
What the master transit plan is calling for is essentially the short term. We're the short term portion of the master transit plan. We have looked at the budgets, make sure that we can fit all that we show here into the budgets that are being shown within the master transit plan, and we can't. But it's still, we're short for the expansion period in 2028 or so.
There's implementation strategies in the master transit plan that deal specifically with this piece of it. It's really, I will give big kudos to both of the teams, both the Nelson Nygaard team and the WRA team. When we sat in this room a year ago for kickoff on getting all of these things done together, and we said you guys are going to have to work closely together. We want to leverage resources to make them go further and do more. And these guys have risen to a challenge all of them, both teams have every time. So, and we've gotten, I think, the value that the board and public And our partners are gonna see in both the master transit plan, the, COA TDP, and then, of course, our implementing budget to all of that is gonna be huge.
You know, I think one slide that could help. One thing I realized is that like, I'm slightly confused, and other people are slightly confused too, and I think, the MTP and the TDP and the COA and the budget, I remember when we kind of started into this adventure, that was like, we're doing all three, these are the different groups, these are what they are, and I think like a 5-minute slide of sort of like, and here again, this is what they are, because now we're at the end of that journey, and it's kind of like, okay, what are, how do these fit together? And just, some things you might want to consider is which teams worked on which, and what are they again, like 3 terms, and also kind of like which ones lock us in, or like which ones are flexibility. I mean, I think as you had said, that there's a big crystal ball we're all trying to look into. I think we all understand that, but like, what are the flexibility of each one? Which ones are more sort of, you know, this is our big idea for 2028, but we really don't know where the money is going to come. But we've got to start planning for that now. And then also, this is what they're doing right now. And I think that would help me get some clarity.
We'll be glad to do that. I think that's an excellent suggestion, and we'll be glad to put together maybe a slide or two, maybe one about sort of the what and who, and then one that says, and how does all this work? And explain what the choices are that it offers, and which are ones that are, you know, the ones that really are kind of right here versus the ones that are a little bit out there. So I think that's an excellent
And
thing.
you had been, I kind of remember feeling like that when you first came here and presented to us, that you were really focused on like immediate stuff, which obviously this is, July 17th is like stuff. So,
Well, Clint,
Another one for us too. They're also on a task order contract where they are doing day-to-day work for us, helping out, working with Ambria on scheduling, analysis, and that kind of thing. So, you know what I mean? Some of it is they're here in a couple of
is there part of this, their presentation, maybe that I've been, just like, it's been a crazy couple of months for me as well, so, you know, why would you forget? But, so this is kind of going up until 2028, but there's something else that we're on that's long.
The master transit.
The master transit plan
It goes
is
to
really quite big.
Well, it goes to 2035. We did it for 10 years. And the reason that we did that is, truth be told, Director Edminster, you know, forecasting for 20 years now is, I don't know exactly how really useful that is, and how really reliable it is. And you should be revisiting these things about every 5 years anyway. The hope is that this master transit plan, and the work with the COA TDP as well, becomes a part of Mobility 2050, I think it is, that the core MPO is doing. So the long range plan, we now will have a really well-developed transit element of that, that helps sort of gives us a North Star, if you will, of where are we trying to go and how. But it also, like any good living document planning process, means that about every 5 years or so, we're going to revisit this, and we're going to refresh, and we're going to see, are there assumptions that have changed? Are there certainly cost estimates that have changed? Is there another Hyundai that has landed
God,
on
no.
us? I mean, are there
I mean,
all
actually,
these
that'd be
kinds
fun.
of things that we need to think about and look at and say, how do we best want to respond to what is in front of us? And that's what we should do. But in the meantime, 10 years is, you know, what I was explaining to another board member this morning. I said, when you look at the master transit plan, that short-term year and the work that you'll hear from the COADP should make you feel like, yeah, I got it. I understand that's right here, right now, and those are things that we're trying to meet right now. The midterm should start to, you know, broaden out a little bit, but still feel pretty comfortable. That 10-year window, that long-range window, should feel a little uncomfortable. It should be making us start to think a little bit and go, do we want to be that, or do we want to be that? And how do we want to accomplish those things? So, and that's intentional and exactly what it should be. And none of these things are we tied into.
Yeah.
All of these things are things that they're decision-making tools for us, so that in the moment, as we're trying to lay out our future, we have good and solid foundations for what we do.
when we started on this work last August, we thought we were going to be having time to evaluate all the routes and make proposals roughly a year out as to what we would change. And what we found in August was all of a sudden, we can't run all the service that we have right now. You have to come and help us make this service reliable today.
Yeah.
So that is when you first saw us in September, when we dove in, tried to evaluate where could we take some service out so that we could be reliable. Then, since then, we've been both realizing what we did wrong, what was too much of service taken out. Route 4, for example, was too much of service taken out. And we've been working to get it right the short term, but at the same time, it really helped us to learn where were the areas that we could really make improvements. The other thing that I'm really pleased with is the interaction that we've had with the labor union. And
There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, we've had 3 or 4 good meetings with the union where they have offered good insight. And I think they are all on board for what we're proposing at this point. And we just got to get the operators hired and trained and get the service going to make it work.
Be mindful of our time.
Yeah.
I thought I would go through the rest of these items very quickly.
How quickly?
Super quickly.
Okay,
So,
I've got to run
Proposed business,
very quickly.
For action by other committees, just very quickly, service delivery operational, there's no action coming out of that committee.
Great.
Just a report on the financial services audit compliance. You're gonna see the FY24 proposed budget being considered for adoption, and a 3-year contract award for uniform purchasing, and a contract award for 10 cameras for paratransit, and a contract award for 10 cameras, both are camera systems for paratransit vehicles, but different components of the transit. So,
Director Adams, do you have any questions on those?
Director Adams,
Oh, he's
No questions at this time.
is he still there?
No questions at this time.
Going to add?
Hello?
And then, under executive governance, we'll have a consideration of an RFP issuance for our federal and state local legislative services. Again, this is a part of the contract administration that we reported to the board on, with regard to looking at existing contracts and determining if we needed to make any modifications or changes, to best serve our needs. And the property and casualty insurance proposed renewal, pending data from the broker. They're still working on scrubbing to get us best cost for our property and casualty insurance needs. We are looking at a bump in workman's comp that is above what we were anticipating, and Ms. Cutter and I are working on a program to incentivize safety and reducing accidents with our employees to help bring that down. So that's all, Director. And I'll turn
That
it
was
back
very
to you.
fast. Director Adams, do you have any other questions? Director Adams, do you have any questions? I do
No,
have-
sir. No, sir.
Oh,
No, sir.
thank God. All right, because I've got a meeting at 5:30. Gotta zoom into. So, thank you. That was actually really fantastic. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm excited to advocate for this plan. I think it'll be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.